almost every man I've talked to in any of these interviews is motivated by not revealing weakness. And if you think about it, I mean, we were talking about football before. If you think about it, that's playing defense 24/7. That's a difficult position for guys to be in. And the scary thing, Henry, is we don't even realize we're in it. We don't realize we're in it.
Really excited to have you here. Excited for the conversation. I think the crux of the work that we've both done is conversations.
That's true.
Why is that so important to have conversations about masculinity, mental health? What does it mean to you? Why did that draw you in?
Well, I think that goes right to the title of my Substack, which is Stuff Guys Don't Talk About. We don't talk about that stuff. And I feel that holds us back. There's a lot of things that hold us back, but I feel that men want to get there on their own. And we think we're supposed to get there on our own. And that's a burden to carry. When it works really well, it seems, you feel great about yourself, but there's so many things that we encounter on a day-to-day basis, big things, small things, that we're just not sure what to do. So sometimes we don't do anything. Sometimes we just walk away. Sometimes we freeze up. And then we just let it go. And so we don't share that with other guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the part of it is sitting with a challenging thing and an uncomfortable thing. And then not only doing that, like first you have to kind of reflect and feel it yourself to know it's there. And then also the next step of sharing, or I guess even first finding people to share with and then sharing, so you can break it down even further. But bringing the sense of community and support to what may have been a solo battle, solo journey up until that point, which just makes it harder.
It just makes it harder, and so many guys have friends, but they don't have guys they can really talk to. And particularly younger ages, let's go out and get wasted. Let's go out and just have a great time and kind of escape. But there's not a let's go out and talk about what's important to you right now kind of conversation or moment, for guys to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think what upsets me is that that's because of a stigma, and it's a stigma that doesn't have to be there. And I think a lot of that stigma is rooted in the work I've done. Almost every man I've talked to in any of these interviews is motivated by not revealing weakness. And if you think about it, I mean, we were talking about football before. If you think about it, that's playing defense 24/7. And if you're doing that, that means you're not moving forward. That means you're not trying to grow. You're trying to keep bad things from happening and from feeling them. And I mean, I'm very experienced at this myself.
Yeah, likewise.
So I think that's a difficult position for guys to be in. And the scary thing, Henry, is we don't even realize we're in it. We don't realize we're in it. And because we just think this is just the way it is. Mm-hmm. And so we don't stop. We don't think about it. We don't have the kind of conversations you're talking about because we don't want to reveal weakness.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm also quite skilled with that. And I think a lot of guys can relate to it. And so I've been working on bringing more of myself into these conversations and not just kind of talking about it academically. I can totally relate. I think one of the fear-based defense mechanisms that affects my life is narrowing the range of acceptable emotions. So like if it's super fun and like whimsical and silly or goofy, like restraining that so it's not perceived as silly, goofy, not taken seriously, but that limits like the emotional range on that end.
Yes, it does.
And then I think the more common one is probably on the other end of like really sad and crying and being vulnerable. Same thing. Don't want to be perceived as weak, and so narrowing that range. But then as that gets more and more well practiced, then you kind of get in this middle ground that's very safe, and I think often even rewarded. I
definitely rewarded.
I get comments like, "Oh, you're so grounded and chill, and calm,
stoic."
I'm like, well, my brain's not, but you're only seeing like this limited expression,
right?
And so I can totally relate to being really good at that, and I'm working or like noticing, recognizing, and working on pushing out those extremes.
Yeah, but there's like a cauldron inside, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not getting out in any way. And you're right. I think we're rewarded for just, let's keep it right here. Mm-hmm. And even when you're talking to a guy, I mean, this happens to me all the time. I assume it happens to you. Maybe it doesn't. But when you're talking to a guy, you know what those limits are.
Yeah.
Right? In that conversation, I can't say that, because that's going to create a moment where I'm not really sure why we're here anymore, for that guy.
Yeah.
And that's not comfortable. So it doesn't happen spontaneously very often or easily.
So let's talk about the interviews a bit more. What do those sound like? How are they structured? Does that kind of next level of depth come out in an interview? If so, like, how do you get there? If not, maybe why doesn't it happen? What do those conversations sound like?
Well, just from a kind of methodological point of view, it's a very long word, by the way. It's a lot of syllables. I actually have guys do answer some questions or ask them to tell me about some situations online first. Mm-hmm. So they write it all out. They've already thought about it. And so when I talk to them, they know I know that, mm-hmm. if that makes sense to you. And the kinds of things I ask guys to tell me about, first of all, I don't ask them a lot of questions. I actually ask them to kind of tell me stories. Tell me about situations in your life. So I ask them about masculine influences and keep it really open, because those can be really good or those can be really bad. I ask them about feminine influences. And the two questions that I ask kind of with each other and that really open up a conversation are, tell me about a time when you felt most like a man. And then tell me about a time when you felt least like a man. Those questions really reveal a lot about how a guy defines manhood for himself. Because the difference between those two is really, do you know what I mean? I mean, the difference between those two for that particular guy, and I'm not saying, that whatever he says isn't true for all guys, but for him, that's what it means to be a man. And the answers to the second question are almost always about moments where they had to reveal weakness. Almost always. I couldn't pick up a check at a lunch or a date. I lost my job, had to go home and tell my spouse. I kind of made a fool out of myself in a meeting. Mm-hmm. I said the wrong thing. It's never, and one of the interesting things to me is it's not, I got beat up. It's not a physical weakness kind of thing. It's an emotional weakness. And there's so much, I hate using this word because I know men don't like to hear it. There's so much shame in that. And we don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. You don't want to go there, right? So I think, that really opens guys up though. And from that point in any interview, I can take it wherever they want to go with it, if you know what I mean. So they might start talking about specific situations in their life, and I can talk more about those and how they felt in those moments.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the framing of stories as opposed to interview questions. That's interesting because I think it gives more free form thinking and talking, which gets you to the next level as opposed to answering a question. And then I think the questions you do start grounding with is really interesting because it puts it immediately in the framing of what for a man, like how do the influences of like what you think it means to be a man affect how you think about your life?
Very much.
Which is really cool. Because it even if you don't subscribe to like these these masculinity either stereotypes or influences, like they don't affect me. A person's a person, and like a good person's a good person with good qualities, and it doesn't matter if man or woman. But if when you frame it like that, it forces you to choose something in your life where it does fit into how you think that gender difference is.
Yes.
And so whether it's a strong influence or weak influence, it matters to think about. At least it's some part of your life has been influenced by the messaging and understanding you have received from the people around you and the culture around you of what it means to be a man. And so at least identifying what pieces of that are yours, and then what pieces of that, like when you say my life fits into it this way, is like external, which is really cool, and it's super individual. So I love that question.
Well, and it requires you as the listener, and this is something I've been just trained to do in doing market research interviews for 30 years. It as a listener, it requires you to not just listen to what they're saying, but to listen underneath that to what are they really talking about. So what were they really feeling in this moment? So then I can play back, gosh, Henry, it feels like you were really confused in that moment. And then more often than not, the guy will say, yeah, I really was. Like, he didn't use that word, but I played that back in a way that gets him to think about it again and also feel like, gosh, he really was listening to me. Mm-hmm. And that then takes the conversation to an even richer level. Mm-hmm. And this all happens very naturally, actually. You start with tell me about a scenario. And all of a sudden, a guy's revealing the thing that he never thought he was going to tell anybody. And I say all of a sudden, there are layers to this, but it's guys after these interviews, and I'm not a therapist, obviously. I don't even play one on TV, but I just the fact that this guy had the opportunity to stop and think about who he is and how he got to where he is and kind of who he wants to be is a sort of a gift that he feels, he's thanking me then for having this conversation, which is a kind of a powerful thing to do. And it doesn't happen much between men.
Yeah, the structure is important of like, we're here to talk about this. And I see it all the time in the interviews we do out at the park, where we have the structure, we have our signs. Sometimes there's a line of people, there's little microphones we attach. And so it does self-select for people who do want to talk about it.
Yes.
But that's totally, I think, how it should be. It's like we're not shoving the camera in someone's face.
Yes.
But then in that space, the conversation flows really freely. and a lot of really good discussion is just right under the surface of you start neutral and kind of work your way into something that's pretty meaningful, and then it's making a connection from total scratch to something meaningful pretty quickly is really amazing for both sides. And so I think we both come away feeling really good. Like we shared something, we listened, we learned something about something that doesn't happen all the time. So it feels special and it feels rare. So I totally agree and hear that connection on like an individual basis. I'm curious because you have a structure that's more broad, like sweeping investigation. Like what are you hoping to learn across conversations, or is it really just about each one is its own learning?
Each one is its own, and then I sit back and analyze the themes, the vocabulary. Do guys use? I mean, when people use similar words, even though they're way different people, that's interesting to me. So in listening to what they're talking about, you're hearing the conversation on a different level, and so I take all that in, and I take in his background, I take in the context of his life, and I'm looking for both. What are some common themes among all men I've talked to, whether they're straight, gay, white, black, brown, ages, all of that stuff. What's common? What's common that defines us kind of as men going through something? And then what's different? What's different in somebody's background? And what are the defining stories, basically, that are more, let's say, context and background related than they are just being a man, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So are there words, imagery, themes you can share that you found interesting, insights from that?
At the end of almost every interview, a guy will say something to the effect of, I know you want to talk about manhood. I just want to be a better person. And I've heard that enough now that it's gotten me to the stage where masculinity and the way a guy feels like he's supposed to be a man gets in the way of that. It just gets in the way. And I don't know if I've heard people talk about it that way or not, but that's interesting to me. And if I can illuminate that for guys and say, do you like, let's think about this for a second, guys. Then that might be a helpful voice for them to hear, as opposed to, saying you're toxic, as opposed to, saying you need to be better. More stop and think about it for yourself, and who you are and what you want to get out of life and the person you want to be. So that's interesting to me as just an overall insight. The other thing that comes out, a few other things that come out, and I think you've heard me talk about this before, and I've written about it some, is everybody talks about the problem of loneliness with men. And I think of that as a problem of onlyness. So I'm the only one going through this. And because of all the stuff we talked about before, that's how that happens, because I'm not going to tell you all the shit that I'm going through, because first of all, you don't want to hear about it, of course. And I just can't imagine sharing that, right? But so onlyness in some ways is a bigger and more insidious problem than loneliness. Loneliness is kind of an outcome. How do I get there? Loneliness is one of the avenues that drives you there, I think, because I can sit with that and go, well, I'm the only one going through this, so I have to deal with it. I can't talk to anybody about it. And all of a sudden, I've isolated myself from everybody else. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that's a kind of a root cause of the isolation that men feel. And that's something that's fixable. You know what I mean? It's something that I feel like if we all paid attention to that, we could say to another guy, hey, I'm going through this, but it seems like you're kind of bummed about something. We could say it to a friend. We could find the vocabulary to have that conversation on some level. I'm not saying it's going to get to super deep, but at least a guy feels like, oh, you too?
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been in conversations with like groups of men, and one guy will say, well, this thing happened this morning, and I was leaving the house, and my wife, wanted me to empty the dishwasher. I was really in a hurry to get to work because I had a meeting and I had all this stuff going on, and I just thought, okay, I guess I really need to do that, and I end up doing it, but kind of pissed me off a little bit. And then every other guy, as you're doing now, nods their head and goes, that kind of happened to me. I mean, something like that. And then all of a sudden the guys start sharing stuff. That's a kind of a cool moment. And then everybody after that says, God, I thought I was the only one. And so, we live in such silos as men, where I do believe, and I'm going to generalize a little bit here. I hate doing this, but women will connect so easily and so quickly with each other, and all of a sudden they're sharing phone numbers and like, let's get together next Thursday. And, you and I meet somewhere and we just go, hey, man, how you doing? Oh, that was cool. Yeah, you seem like a great guy. I'd like to spend more time with you. See you later. There's just more our orientation, I'm not. It's not my field of study, but it feels like that limits us, but I think it's just kind of who we are as men in a way as well.
Well, it ties back to the masculinity getting in the way, because that is a kind of clearly unproductive hamstring, and I'm going to tie it back to the transition in the interviews that you've conducted of framing that question about masculinity and where you felt most like a man and least like a man, kind of forces the interviewee to think about the influences of masculinity on their life. And then by the end, kind of maybe coming to the conclusion that those structures where you feel most and least like a man are blocking you from acting in a way of clarity.
Yes.
Because it's influenced by a should be or a comparison that either adds shame or pressure that
yes.
prevents like a really clear behavior. And when those influences are taken away, you're left with, I just want to be a better person. So that's a really cool transition. And then also the onlyness root cause is cool, is a cool insight. I think the thinking no one else is going through this or no one else wants to hear this is just a fear-based response to, like, if I share this, I will be ridiculed or shamed or isolated or awkward. But everyone has problems where they feel those things. And I was on the phone with a friend. I'm going to contextualize this in my own life. I was on the phone with a friend last week sharing a problem and a challenge and a difficulty that was completely different. He does not experience those problems in his life, but he had a completely different one that popped up.
Oh, right. Nice.
Shared on the same, like, feelings of transition and crossroads and like rudderlessness and confusion and worry, and like totally bonded over the feeling of those struggles.
That's a big step right there.
And it was really cool. And like, I feel much closer to him. He knows what's going on in my life. I know what's going on in his. Zero crossover on the content, like completely different content. But it was so it broke past the onlyness thing where even though I'm not going through what he's going through and vice versa, there was no onlyness on like the feelings. And so that was like a really cool example that I thought of when you were sharing that. I was like, okay, I've done a little bit of work on this and got closer with a friend, and next time I have another problem, like he's someone I can call up, and even though he's most likely not going to have experienced whatever next thing befalls me, then it's someone who can listen and relate to the feelings. Right,
and you gained, you didn't lose, right? I mean, you didn't. There was nothing in a way to lose by revealing that. It's interesting. One of the guys that I've come to know a bit because I've interviewed him a few times. Is an alcoholic. He has kids, and he's out on the soccer field, and next to a bunch of dads watching their kids play. And one of the dads said to him, "Hey, let's go out for a beer or whatever after." And this guy that I interviewed, I mean, he said, "I could have not said anything, or I could have just." Said, "Oh, sure, we'll just do that sometime," or some kind of bullshit, like, "Yeah, let's get together," even though you don't really mean it. But he decided to tell this guy. He said, I'm an alcoholic, and that took me down a really tough road, and I'm recovering from that, and so that's why I don't, I'm not going to be able to go out for a beer. I'll go out with you, but I'm not going to have a beer. And then this guy revealed, very similar to what you're saying, he revealed something tough that he was going through. And there wasn't that, but it was, but then they created a connection that they didn't have before. So instead of, again, being, I'm the only guy, now I've created a connection with another guy that, and you with this friend you're talking about, that just opened up a door for you to share something else and for him to do the same thing. I just think if there's a world where we can do that more easily without this damn stigma, and the stigma is femininity. I mean, I was going to just out and out say it, is just, if I have to, seek help, or if I really want to improve myself internally, that's kind of something women do, right? It's bullshit. No, it's something we should all do. We should all want to have those kind of connections. We should all want to grow. But that, I think that's one of the things that fundamentally has men stuck, some men stuck.
Yeah.
I just don't think I can have that conversation.
Yeah. I think like running your life through the filter of where are these masculine influences affecting my life is a really important exercise to take. And I'm going to think more on this later in my own life too, where I'm sure in some areas it's bolstering it, and I know in lots of areas it's holding me back. But running that analysis of seeing like it's not there, it's not invisible, but you have to take a look at it to see where it's influencing your life. Like, what is mine, and then what are these influences of should-bes and comparisons that are preventing you from thinking clearly or being the better version of yourself.
I mean, the process you're talking about, to me, I would equate to, I need to, it would help me if I understood my motivations better.
Yeah.
And that's a really valuable process to go through. And I've done it myself. I've tried to do it. I still suck at it. it's just something you're working at all the time.
Yeah.
And that's one of the other things that has come out of the interviews that I've done with these men is we as a society focus very much culturally, movies, music, on the notion of becoming a man. Oh, now you're a man. So if you think about it, that treats manhood as a kind of a destination, an arrival point, where all of a sudden I'm a man. I got to this age, I drank this many Jack Daniels without throwing up. I pushed through some huge challenge, and now I came out the other end and I'm a man. I feel like if we thought of manhood as more of a practice, it's an ongoing thing that we're working on all the time. Practice sounds boring. I mean, we need a better word than that. But that's what I mean. It's okay to keep working on it. If we think of it as a destination, that's where I think guys can get to, like, well, I have a right to be, I'm a man. So things should be this way. I mean, that's bullshit, really. And so I feel like if guys are thinking, hey, at a very young age, and I'm talking boys, and even if we are culturally conditioned to feel like we never arrive at something like that, we are always working towards growing, we're always working towards improving ourselves. I mean, I wasn't conditioned that way. It's not that someone was trying to, I mean, this all happens so kind of subconsciously, I think, for all of us. But to me, that's really important. If guys feel like this is the way a guy's supposed to be. Oh, this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to have these kind of conversations, Henry, like you had with this guy, because that's what we do. Mm-hmm. That's what a good guy does. That's what a real man does. Whatever vocabulary you want to put on that.
Yeah. The motivations investigation is an important one, I think, because it forces you to acknowledge. I think there are always going to be ones that you aren't really comfortable with. Like, oh, I actually want to do that because I want to impress these people. Oh, mm-hmm. I did this because I was really scared and anxious. Mm-hmm. And I think, I know me, like, I want to feel like my motivations are mine and in my control and the right reasons and things I've been intentional with and mm-hmm. thoughtful with, mm-hmm. and because I want my life to be charted in a way that I want. Yes. But there's so many influences of, oh, I did that because I was really scared and nervous. And I did that because I wanted this person to be proud of me or think I was smart or special. And those are important realizations to identify which ones are truly yours and then which ones are coming from a place of stuff you've unearthed that maybe you don't want to be there and need to let go of. I don't need that person to think I'm cool. I don't need this person's approval. I can let go of that. I can relax that constraint. Okay, I was really scared there. And next time I face a situation like that, I'm gonna be brave and do the hard thing, whether it's something that could be made fun of or a big risk of failure or big risk of getting hurt, but I'm going to push through anyways because I know last time I acted out of fear and protected myself and ran away from something. Man, you're really hitting on something that's very important. And almost everything you said there was an outcome. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, right? I mean, oh, I want this guy to think, or do I really want this guy to think I'm cool? We're thinking, and I think we do this a lot as men, is think in terms of outcomes. When I've asked men to talk about communication, how you communicate, all of that stuff, one of the things I've noticed in listening to what are they really talking about here is they almost immediately go to outcomes. It's like, well, I wanted for this to happen. Mm-hmm.
what about the relationship? I mean, so but like, I wanted this outcome. It sounds so selfish to say this out loud, but I wanted this to happen for me. This is what I want. And so why can't I get it? As opposed to, this is the kind of connection I want to have with this person, and how can I have a conversation, or how can I just be myself in a way that creates a sort of natural connection with somebody.
Yeah. I'm going to equate the outcome with mental health here. I think a lot of, for me at least, a lot of the outcome-based things are like, I'm arrived at a place where I'm not anxious and I'm not in a place of fear. But that outcome is just seeking kind of like a perfect, tranquil mind. And if I have all the right pieces and parts of my life, then my mind will be quiet, and I'll have this peaceful mental health. But that's an impossible outcome.
Yes.
And the placing all the right outcomes and pieces in my life is not going to achieve that.
Yes.
That's kind of an internal mental health journey. But I know that for me, like equating outcomes with like this happiness and peaceful destination is not accurate, but it gets conflated a lot.
No, but it's completely natural, and it's what we're fed a lot. Advertising feeds us that. Movies feed us that. Most romantic comedies are about falling in love. They're not talking about the work of being in love. And then the movie's over, right? Well, I fell in love. Great. Now what the hell do I do? So I think it's, I mean, there's nothing like flawed about that in a way. I just think it's become so normal. And again, it's one of those things we don't recognize that we do. I have to catch myself on this constantly, and I'm still not great at it.
Yeah.
But just being more conscious of exactly what you said about, maybe I can just be this person.
Yeah. If I have the right career and the right partner and the right family and live in the right place, then I can be happy and relax, and I've arrived.
Yeah.
It's always a journey, and it's always work. And I can't remember who said it, but there's a quote of like, I think it was one of the talk show hosts, maybe it was like, or comedian said that, like doing better in life or progressing in life in the way that you want is just choosing better problems, which I love. And like problems and problem solving and going through struggles of life is life. And that's a privilege to just choose better problems.
Yeah.
So I love that, because it takes some of the pressure off. Like, I have all these problems, and when I solve them and fix them, then in that future state, I won't have any.
Yes.
No, I get to choose problems I want, or bigger problems maybe. I get to choose bigger, more like high. The other analogy, I can't remember. It was a comedian. I remember it. I can't remember his name, but the other thing he said was, he said he realized he was playing low stakes poker.
Oh.
He was pedaling around in, like, he was afraid of playing the high risk game of going all in on a career, a relationship, kids. And so he realized he wanted to be at the high stakes table playing with big problems, like how to be a good dad. And so he had kids later in life. But that was really scary for him at the low stakes table, where you're not building real relationships and you're not involving big permanent things like a family. It's a great
metaphor. I love that.
That was really cool. It was
I love that.
I want bigger problems. I don't want smaller problems. I want bigger problems.
No, and as you say that, here's the situation that comes into my mind as you're saying that. I'm thinking about a guy who won't have a difficult conversation with his spouse because what she or he just said to him has pissed them off, but they're holding it in. And they're holding it in because they want to stay at the low stakes table. They're holding it in because if we go to the high stakes table, like, I'm not prepared for that. I don't know what's going to happen. Now we have to have this huge conversation. I think I'll just stay at the low stakes table. I'm just going to just let it bounce off me. And I'll be fine. I'm going to turn the game on. I'm going to go out to a gallery, whatever. I'm going to go do something that's a distraction, basically, from that. And so low stakes table I love that. That's a really great, I've never heard that. And so I really love that. It's such a great metaphor for.
My guess of the comedian's name is Jimmy Carr. I think he's a UK comedian. I think that's his name. Don't quote me on it, but it was an amazing clip that really resonated with me.
Oh, it's huge, and it's a great. Honestly, it's a great way to talk to guys about it because it's gambling. It's poker, totally. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, wait a minute. Am I actually being a pussy by staying at the low stakes table? I mean, that's what a guy could possibly think. Again, thinking of outcomes and thinking of, how I want to be and how I want to be perceived, how I want to perceive myself. That I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Thanks for that. That's great.
I'm glad I remembered it. It was somewhere in the recesses of my brain, and maybe one of the rare times that scrolling actually stuck. Because I did see it. It's a clip on whatever, YouTube Shorts or something like that. But it really took a lot of the pressure off. I think the outcomes chase that I was really focused on of like, this will take away my problems.
Yeah.
As problems is the reward.
Yeah.
You get bigger, better problems that are riskier and scarier to you.
Yeah.
And so like the fear and anxiety around those is kind of a reverse indicator for how significant they are.
Yeah.
For your life.
Well, low stakes table is also kind of what I was talking about before, about you're playing defense all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're like, well, no, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah,
I don't want that to happen.
My chip stack and hedge, and I can leave this table whenever I want, and that's okay because I've only invested this $4.
Right.
And I'm just gonna guard this little $4 my whole life.
Right. I only brought $4 to the table, and I'm gonna leave with it. Damn it.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I could win $1,000 there.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a poker player, I know that it's a terrible strategy.
Yeah. No, and that's why I'm a terrible poker player. I'm just realizing, because I mean, this is great. I love this because I've been to casinos a few times. I don't go anymore. It's first of all, it's not fun and all of that. And the idea of I just lost $200 in a minute or something like that. It's terrifying to me. Mm-hmm. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
So, wow. I actually think I do that. I was like, I'm going to walk away with something now. And I'm going to have some sorts of pride there, but it's kind of, it's small man pride, right?
And it's not the perfect analogy because we're not saying go into the casino and your whole bankroll.
No. But emotionally,
yeah.
Emotionally,
take the risk.
Be willing to take a risk because the payoff can be amazing. Yeah. And what I love about your story and thinking about this guy that I've had in my studies is, I think, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I kind of heard him say this, and that is, I just thought, like, what the hell? Mm-hmm. I'm just going to say this. I don't, like, if this guy walks away or if he thinks I'm whatever, like, that's not going to be a big loss for me, actually. Mm-hmm. It's just, okay, well, I tried.
Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah, and I think there's a sense of surety sometimes. Like, I think with guys who do the work and have these reflections and don't feel the fear so deeply over sharing. There's a sense of surety and confidence of like, okay, I can share this, and even if I get shot down, like I'm okay because I know that sharing makes me a better person and it's a sign of strength, and vulnerability is strength. And I think it takes some time. Like I think it's really rare to find a middle schooler or high schooler who has arrived at that sense of surety. I think it's not impossible, but it's harder. Sometimes it takes a journey. It takes some mistakes, some running away from something, or acting out in anger or defensiveness, where you look back, oh, like I did that because of that, and if I had handled it like that, it might have turned out differently. But I can see it sometimes in like if you see a group of 16-year-old guys, like there's so much tension and like pressure. I almost want to be like, everyone just relax. Like you guys can all just be friends and like not bully each other and like have this amazing friendship. And it can grow over time, but you can really feel when there's a protectiveness that's so rigid and so firm.
Have I encountered that
it
before.
Holds a lot of pain.
No, one of the things I've done in my career where I've ended up in marketing research talking to a lot of men about masculinity, even before I got into just the study of men. And what you just described, I encountered so many times with 22, 23-year-old guys in a focus group. You know, we're here to talk about beer. 6 guys around the table, ball caps on. You know, I mean, literally body language like this. I'm looking down. I don't really want anybody even to see my facial expression. And here we're in an environment where we're supposed to share how we feel about things. And experiencing that, even with older guys too, but, you know, where knowing that men are coming into this discussion and they're motivated essentially to not reveal anything weak about themselves is pretty amazing. It's kind of tough as somebody who's trying to get something out, some insight out of someone. But what I felt was just pain. These guys are in pain and they have no idea how to let go of it. And that's when I first started thinking like, wow, maybe I should explore this more. But it took me a long time to figure out that's something I could help guys do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and conversations is a strong vehicle to make progress.
It's a strong vehicle, and talking one-on-one is way easier, as we're doing now.
Yeah.
Talking in groups is, you know, one guy says something and all of a sudden everybody else goes like a guy sees an ad if you're showing him something and goes like, that's gay. Mm-hmm. Well, then all the other guys are going to go, oh yeah, that's right. You know, and I'm not saying it's right to say that. Yeah. But that happens.
The group dynamic.
The group dynamic all of a sudden is, whoa, like that guy said something. I can't argue with that. Mm-hmm. I can't say, I don't think it's right what you just said. Mm-hmm. Because, wow, now we're going to have a bigger discussion. Now all that fear creeps in.
Yeah, the group dynamic is hard, and even more important for a leader, like someone who is sure enough to change the course of how a group thinks, is harder than changing or opening up to just with one person.
Yeah.
And again, you see that all the time in big groups of younger guys, conversations one-on-one, they're one way, and then put them in a group of 10 people and it's, who is this person?
It's completely different.
Yeah.
It's completely different. And I think it's, and now the group, in a way, if I could make a social comment here, is social media. Mm-hmm. And all of the pressures that a guy is under now, who is just a guy, I'm thinking of a guy just starting out in life, or maybe even a teenage boy. There's no certainty. where's my firm ground? What can I count on about myself? And so then there's so much coming at me all the time. So much coming at me. And I think, I mean, the interviews that your guys do in the park, in Washington Square Park, I feel like some of those young guys are really revealing a lot about that and about how difficult it is without, I'm using my words now, not theirs, but essentially what they're talking about is I don't feel like there's anything I can count on for sure that's coming at me. And I things are just a lot harder for me. I don't know if I can afford things. I don't know. I mean, this is the thing that I've learned from, and I've talked to guys who are kind of on the different end of some of the guys I think I've heard in the interviews that you've done. You know, a guy who's I want to stay at home with my parents. I'm choosing to do that. And that guy is he doesn't feel like it's safe to go out on his own. You know, other guys, young guys, are feeling like they're making a different choice. Coming back to what you said before, that they're choosing to just go for it. But it's in a world that, versus when I grew up. I mean, I knew. Here's the good guys. Here's the bad guys. You know, I knew I could make a life on my own. I had some sort of confidence that was based in feeling certain about things. Mm-hmm. And guys just can't do that now, I don't think.
Yeah. I mean,
I think they know it without putting those words to it. I think they feel it, I should say, on a certain level.
Yeah, I definitely sense the challenge in that and the yearning for that. I think it's certainly harder today. It's this combination of like accountability and that it was not going to happen on its own. It's also the understanding and that it is hard. So it's not a guarantee to strike out and create really strong bonds and relationships with the people around you. It takes a lot of work.
It does.
So it's both that this is challenging, but it's not going to happen on your own. And it taking some accountability of like, okay, if this is what I need to do to feel concrete and connected to people around me, and that will make me like put my feet on the ground and I'll feel better, then I have to go out and do that and like be brave and create connections and share who I am with other people, and they'll share with me, and that's the journey. So it's seeing like, oh, this is really hard. Men are lonely, the loneliness epidemic, all that, but not throwing up your hands and be like, all right, that's it.
Yeah.
It's to not give up. It's to take accountability. Like, okay, I'm going to make my life better. And by doing that, it's not pursuing some outcome. Like that can be a piece of it, but it's really about building the relationships that will support you in getting to the outcome you care about.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm way older than you, obviously, but men reach a certain age, I think, and I'm going to generalize a little bit here, where I've kind of made it, so to speak, from I feel pretty secure. I feel pretty okay with myself. I feel like a lot of the things that I worried about at a younger age, I don't worry about quite as much anymore. That said, a lot of guys don't ever get there. Mm-hmm. But one of my thoughts is, as a step forward for men in general, is what if we could feel that at a much younger age?
Yeah.
How would life be different?
Yeah.
And if you could get out of high school, get out of college, trade school, working environment, whatever, and you can just feel like I know who I am,
Yeah.
and I can just be my own man, the way I want to be my own man, and people are going to accept that. They're not going to accept it.
Yeah.
You know, what if that could happen really early?
It would truly change the world. And
It would change the world.
It's so big because it's asking men to be okay with themselves and to love themselves and to forgive themselves for prior failings, also take accountability and face those failings. Like, okay, that was a mistake. That was wrong. I feel those feelings of shame and regret, and like actually internalize the cost, and will do this to improve myself and become a better person. But in the process of becoming a better person does not come from a place of self-loathing.
Yes.
And I Dr. Brendan, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago, said that he wanted to be a better man and he wanted to improve himself, and he thought he could only do that if he hated himself.
Wow.
Because I hate this piece of myself. I have to make it better. I'm going to become stronger, and I'm going to do better in my career. But that is not how you make progress. It's a never ending cycle of feeling terrible about yourself. So being able to like exhale and just be okay with yourself, which, like you said, I think can be achievable. It takes some time, and finally a guy, I don't know, maybe it's 55 and it's like makes peace with himself and where his life, but bringing that earlier so there's less like pent up tension of just not being okay with yourself. Yeah,
and guys can carry that for a long time, and it can damage relationships. It can hold them back in their careers. It can make them play the small stakes game.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm sitting at the tiny table instead of the big table.
Yeah.
You know, and without even realizing it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, Henry, that just that we do so, and I do it all the time. I mean, we all do it. Things we're not really stopping to think about. Things like that.
Yeah.
And but if a guy could do that, if a guy walks out of, goes from one environment to another, high school to college, trade school, workforce, and he knows who he is. I mean, I didn't. And I feel like, I've had a good life, but I feel like I suffered by not really knowing myself, being honest with myself about who I am, about saying, okay, here's your skills, here's who you are, all that, and applying it in a way. Man, it'd be
been easier.
It would have been a lot easier.
It would have been a lot easier.
It would have been a lot. But you don't. That's just not the way I was brought up. It's not the way I think a lot of men are brought up.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is conditioned for unconditional love for yourself.
Right.
I think it's often a realization that only comes through a ton of pain and hardship of like, okay, I went through all of that and I still hate myself. Then let me try just being okay. But it takes a lot of cycles of pain and hardship. But I think it's something you can practice. I think like if you can look in the mirror and even for a few seconds and it's just pretend. It's like you probably don't even feel like that about yourself, but just for like 5 seconds, all the shitty things you've done, all the mistakes, all the failures, like being okay with them for like 2 seconds. And then you can go back to just being really regretful or angry or frustrated. But that just like looking at yourself in the mirror and just dropping that
might feel like the best vacation you've ever taken, right? I mean, and even if it happens for a few seconds and then you're back into, now I got to do this job, or now I got to have this conversation or whatever.
Yeah. But for 2 seconds, like forgiving yourself, being okay with where you are. Yeah. I think, is like a little mini vacation. And it can be totally fake. You could have done the biggest screw up of your life and whatever, for those 2 seconds, you're perfect.
Yeah, you're okay, and there's nothing selfish about that. There's nothing of being like overly self-centered. It's just it's taking care of yourself, really.
And there's so much, I don't deserve to feel like this. I have to do this before I can feel that.
Yes. Well, and I was always the guy. I think we tell ourselves a lot of stories about who we are.
Yeah.
That hold us back.
Yeah, I am this, and so the things that I do in my life have to fit this narrative.
Yeah.
And it's formulated early.
Yes.
And a lot of times for pretty arbitrary reasons.
Right.
Like if you're good at some random sport in 8th grade, it's like, okay, now I'm like this athlete. Or
Or
if you're
Henry's a volleyball player.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or whatever. Yeah.
It's latching onto that stuff and just rigidly holding on to that narrative doesn't allow the crazy wildness of life that's going to change it for you to be flexible.
Yeah.
And being rigid, things can break.
Yeah. When my son was a pretty good athlete in high school. I'd say more than pretty good. So a really good athlete, baseball player, basketball player. When he decided to go to college and completely shifted his focus, he still played like intramural sports, whatever, all that stuff, but he wasn't trying to get a scholarship, to music and theater.
Yeah, the identity narrative changes.
Like all of a sudden, I was like, I think that's certainly one of, if not my most, feel like a man moments. Of like, I don't know if I did anything, but I just felt so proud that he did that.
He was able to be flexible.
He was able to just go from being this guy to that guy kind of seamlessly. Mm-hmm. And I was like, boy, I wish I had that a little bit for myself. But I was so happy that he had that.
Yeah. And there was probably was a lot of work behind the scenes to be okay with that shift.
Yeah, dad screaming at him all the time. But I don't, like I said, I don't know what was the thing.
Mm-hmm. But he felt safe and okay enough with himself to be able to change and not have like a whole panic identity, and that's really cool. We are coming up on time, so I want to check in with you to see if we covered a lot. If there's
we've covered a lot.
Anything else
we've covered a lot.
Want to share or with the audience, maybe where people can find you, what you're working on, if there's anything else we haven't covered. Set aside.
Well, the thing, I guess I'll share one thing, and then I'll give you some of my particulars. Cool. There's a lot of voices out there that are trying to influence or help men, and I feel like a lot of those voices are telling a man how he's supposed to be a man. And what I would like for my voice to do, if we're talking about outcomes here, is to make it okay for a man to be himself, to be his own man. And to help him figure out how to do that. I want to be my own man. And guys say that, but they're not always really doing that. But to have that level of self-assuredness on their terms, not the way society is telling them to do that, or one particular guy who's out there talking, whatever. Let's create an environment where guys can figure that out on themselves. Let's give them the space to be the man they want to be. Let's give them the tools to be the man they want to be. Not can keep telling him the man he should be. and I feel like that's I kind of feel like that's my mission, I guess. Stuff guys don't talk about on Substack. I'm publishing something pretty much every Tuesday, so you can read what I'm writing there. I'm continuing a study with men called Undercurrent that is really about asking guys to stop and think about all the stuff on the inside. And you can find that study on my website, which is called menmovingforward.com. And you can also find starting a men's organization that is going to be on there soon, and that'll be a place you can find that as well. And that organization is really designed around the idea of one man's experience becomes another man's wisdom. And I'll tell you more about it later. We're not quite launched yet.
Awesome.
So that's me. And man, I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I love the work you're doing with men and the park and the way you think about it and the space you've created.
Appreciate that.
For guys to talk about this, and I think I know why that's important to you, and your story and the way you're doing that, I think is a real example for how we could all do it. So I'm very, very happy that you're doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean.